Why an INFJ is sometimes seen as a narcissist. There are 16 well-known Myers-Briggs personality types, with INFJ being the most uncommon. According to studies, this personality type accounts for less than 2% of the world's population. Holders of this personality trait are very unique in the way they deal with life itself. Hello and welcome back to the channel. Today, let's have a look at why an INFJ may sometimes be seen as a narcissist. While these qualities aren't true for every INFJ, these are some of the reasons why they might be viewed as narcissistic. Let's jump right into it. INFJs often feel as though they don't belong with their friends and coworkers. Even when they are hanging out with their friends, they feel like they don't actually belong. This is how INFJs feel the majority of the time. For these people, the adage, "lonely in a crowd," is more accurate than ever. On some occasions, they even feign their personality, just to relate and fit in to others they're around with. This isn't a weird thing for INFJs because they have the need to feel connected to others. The way that this can be seen as narcissistic is that people can view them as self-centered. In their eyes, it happens to everyone. Most people have days when they feel like they don't belong, and they think that INFJs are faking it to an extent to make themselves feel special. A common trait among INFJs is that they like to humble brag. They like to do this quite a lot on social media platforms as opposed to doing this in real life. That might be due to the sense of security one gets from being behind a screen. They'll say something that, on the surface, appears to be self-deprecating, but is actually intended to elicit indirect praise. Or they'll say something that appears to be encouraging for someone else, but is actually a covert compliment to themselves for their actions. An example of this would be how some INFJs turn around a tragic situation and make it all about themselves. They undermine the issue at hand and instead victimize themselves so that they can get the praise or empathy from people. There was this very famous Facebook post a few years ago which was made by an INFJ in one very well-known MBTI group. The post was made around the time of the Orlando terror attack in 2016, and the person who posted it made the post all about her reaction to the attack instead of the attack itself. The post was self-centered and was undermining the hardships of the people and the families affected by the attack. It isn't uncommon for them to act like the princess in peril just so they can take advantage of a situation. This comes off as a narcissistic behavior and is one of the reasons why INFJs are sometimes seen as narcissistic. For INFJs, the distinctions between introverts and extroverts on the social spectrum are hazy. They can be the most talkative or charming individuals that you have ever met or seen. If they are with people they care about, they will crack jokes and be intimate and hilarious. But when the company is not the closest to them, the contrary is also true. They become incredibly reserved and bashful in instances like this. Looking at the same individual in these two settings, it would be difficult to believe they are the same person. When it comes to INFJs, your social behavior is heavily influenced by your mood and energy levels, as well as the people around you. But this same behavior could be a double-edged sword. People could view this behavior as INFJs maneuvering people's perception of who they are. One person could observe an INFJ hang out with different people and be completely different people. This comes off as being dishonest and ingenuine. In the same vein, when INFJs are around people who make them feel threatened, or they don't like the person in question, they implement persuasive manipulation maneuvers to control them or discredit them. They also use some tricks to make people like them and manipulate who they actually are. Sometimes an INFJ can have the tendency to spread rumors about someone they don't like, such as exes, former bosses, etc. They also seem to frame themselves as the victims in certain situations where they are in fact the culprits. They make certain people look bad in group settings so that they can get the support and affirmation of their friends. When they narrate certain stories or events that happen, they tend to paint themselves in a positive light, or they tend to leave out details which make them look bad. This way of telling what happened doesn't convey the entire picture, and more often than not, it is not what actually happened. By the time the other person tries to share their part of the story and clarify what actually happened, The well has already been poisoned and the person in question has already been discredited. This is because everyone already has the point of view that the person is only motivated by revenge, thus discrediting what actually happened. This is an example of social manipulation. Although it is very subtle, it is completely deliberate. Now, this doesn't mean that every INFJ has this behavior, but those who do have made it so that people view INFJs as narcissistic. When it comes to handling problems and issues, INFJs are very unique. If someone comes to them with a problem that they are facing, they only lend a listening ear for the most part. They don't try to give advice or opinions until the other person asks for it. What they do instead is that they help the other person understand the situation and problem better by asking questions and giving them other perspectives to look at. They can even further help them by telling them about similar experiences that they have gone through, hoping that the other person would learn a lesson from that. To an INFJ, it might be clear what to do in said situations or problems, but they feel like they don't want the other person to do it just based on their advice, and they want them to reach this conclusion on their own. This is also kind of where the problem comes from. To an INFJ, they assume that they know exactly what to do. In their eyes, they think that they cannot be wrong and that they recognize what the underlying thoughts or emotions are when someone says something. Sometimes they will even argue with you about your own feelings. Sounds crazy, I know. And when you try to correct them about their assumptions, most INFJs will not admit that they are wrong. In fact, they will convince themselves that you are just not self-aware enough to understand your own feelings, whereas they have a much higher understanding of emotions since they consider themselves smarter. If you just straight up assume how another person feels and then refuse to admit that you are wrong, you are just a narcissist. Now, some INFJs out there might accept their mistakes, but more often than not, they do not have the tendency to do that. Even if they have a gruff exterior or a cold personality, INFJs are usually quite sensitive on the inside. Even if they don't wear their emotions on their sleeves, this may lead to others being hurtful to them or not caring about how they feel. When this occurs, INFJs typically isolate themselves from those who have harmed them. They prioritize their own well-being regardless of whether the individual who wronged them was a longtime friend or a new coworker. It's not that INFJs enjoy cutting people off, it's them caring about and defending themselves. One disadvantage of this trait is that they are overly concerned with other people since they are sensitive on the inside. This can lead to INFJs being people pleasers in a way that is not necessarily a good thing. They are obsessed with the image one person has about them, and they will go to extreme lengths to maintain the perfect image that they want the other person to have. This is narcissistic behavior, if it goes to the extreme, and people can view INFJs as narcissistic for this behavior. INFJs are often tremendously in tune with their dreams. Unaware, they are continuously seeking to decipher the underlying abstract meaning of things. Their mental processes resemble those of dreaming more than those of any other individual. This indicates that people think more like they are dreaming when they absorb information. This may also be the reason why it's hard for these folks to distinguish between their dreams and reality. To some people, this behavior might come off as being self-absorbed and self-centered, and they wouldn't be wrong. Sometimes when INFJs fail to separate dream from reality, it comes off as them being narcissistic because to them, their own understanding of certain things has more importance than what the truth might be. When INFJs are stressed, they tend to fall down a rabbit hole of escaping. This escapism seems to be their only solace in troubling times. In moments where they are highly stressed, they let go of all restraint and let loose. This can come in the form of spending all their money impulsively or binge eating junk food. On some occasions, they can also just let go of it all and go on a trip unannounced to some faraway place for who knows how long. This way of releasing pent-up energy can be seen as narcissistic because INFJs stop caring about their responsibilities when this happens. They neglect their work or other obligations and just ignore everything in a way which is unhinged. This is narcissistic in a sense that to INFJs, in that moment, nothing else matters other than what they want. This can lead to bigger issues at the workplace and might be one of the reasons why INFJs can be seen as narcissistic. These people are usually very good empaths. This means that they are quick to detect and understand the emotions of other people. This is one of the skills that INFJs have, which makes it easy for them to detect external emotions. But this also makes it harder for them to understand their own emotions. They can often get lost trying to make sense of their inner feelings. They process their own emotions differently and are much more harsh towards themselves when it comes to judging. But this same behavior can lead them to be oblivious to their own shortcomings when it comes to the failure of their close relationships. Some INFJs have this weird habit of holding other people to absurdly high standards, making extremely subliminal and passive-aggressive comments about how they expect others to treat them, and then getting upset when the other person inevitably fails the test because they were unable to follow the metaphorical trail of breadcrumbs that the INFJ had left for them to follow. They also spend a lot of time and energy attempting to emotionally manipulate others into behaving a certain way. As much as it sounds like a pretentious quality, it is very much true. INFJs care a lot of presentation and how things look and feel. They care about the quality of things and how they are made. Status is important to them, which is why they focus on wearing good and eating good. These people would rather have one item of high craftsmanship than owning multiple subpar ones. This applies to the things they wear, to the things they eat and drink. Although wanting better for oneself isn't narcissistic per se, this might lead to some people viewing INFJs as narcissists if this behavior reaches an extreme. That was mostly it for why an INFJ is sometimes seen as a narcissist. What are your thoughts and experience regarding these? Let us know in the comments down below. Remember to subscribe to our channel and to ring the notification bell. It really helps us out. Check out some of the other videos we have done on this channel. We'll see you next time.